Stephen A. Smith, give me a couple of minutes to speak my heart on this, and then please help me by talking me through my feelings, if you would. I do want to be very clear. These are strictly my personal feelings, but I remain outraged that those who run the Philadelphia Eagles did so little in reaction to that word that Riley Cooper spoke. They had a chance, the people in power, the owner, the GM, the new head coach, to take a stand, and they stood down. I remain outraged, Stephen A., that they merely fined Riley Cooper an undisclosed amount. I don't know what it was. A wrist slap? Was it $2,500? I do know the NBA fined Kobe Bryant $100,000 for using a homophobic slur. I have no idea what the Eagles did to Riley Cooper. I remain outraged they allowed him to practice the day this story broke, and then that they gave him virtually a sort of an extended 3-day weekend, I'm assuming just to clear his head and let this blow over a little bit. And I remain outraged they let him right back on the practice field yesterday, scrimmaging against the New England Patriots, and he caught a couple of touchdown passes. So I can conclude that all that Riley Cooper could have learned about this saga is that, oh, I can't use that word even in the company of white people in public, because everybody's got a camera in their hand with cell phone video. That's all he could have learned here. And Stephen A., I was further outraged yesterday when I heard Riley Cooper, among all the good things, the fair things, the deep things that he said, he made the one statement that his teammates know I'm not that kind of person. I don't buy that. I can't buy that. Because, Stephen A., if you're capable of using that word, if it's capable of spilling out of your mouth, even in anger, even when you're intoxicated, then you are that kind of person. You can't use that word by accident. And in this case, Riley Cooper used that word plural, as in, I'll fight every blah, blah, blah here. Every, plural. And that's why day one when the story broke, I said he has to be cut for the good of the football team, for the unity of the locker room. And Stephen A., I got to tell you, I have taken a beating on Twitter over it. I am all about forgiveness. I don't want to completely condemn Riley Cooper. I like some of the things he said. But Stephen A., as a white man, I have to take a stand against those white people out there who still today believe that using that word isn't all that big a deal. That unspeakable word that I've told you several times on the show in the last few days is the most vile, evil, despicable, unconscionable word in this language, and it should be eradicated, Stephen A. Okay, to me, final statement. A white person using that word, this is my interpretation of it. When I hear a white person utter that word, the white person is saying that the black race is still inferior, that it's even subhuman, that it's little or no different than it was in the slave days. That's how I interpret it. So to me, even though you can say I'm being a little over-emotional, I'm overreacting, I'm overstating the case, I'm just trying to take a stand against this now, because this is a teaching moment, a learning moment, a stand that nobody with the Eagles seems willing to take. And now I'm with you. The other day I tried to defend Roger Goodell a little bit. You took him on. Obviously, our friend Michael Wilbon took him to task very harshly. Can even he step in here and do something about a situation that has been swept under the stadium rug? Are we just going onward and upward from this? I can't live with that. I'm sorry, Stephen A.
Wow. First of all, I deeply appreciate your comments. You have every right to feel that way. I'm not in a position to disagree with you on that, Skip, because you're coming from the perspective of a white man. And obviously, I'm not a white man. So I respect where you're coming from, and I deeply appreciate it, because as a black man, the level of sensitivity that you just articulated is something that any black person in America should appreciate. And it's something that, you know, it just reminds me, it reminds me of, to some degree, when you think about the civil rights movement, it reminds me of the fact that it wasn't just Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and so many other African Americans marching for civil rights and what have you. You had some white folks up in there that were helping and assisting in that movement. And I think that that's something the black community needs to be cognizant about. It's something that we need to remember. Now let me get back specifically to Riley Cooper. I'm on the record saying that I thought he should be fined. I thought the commissioner should step in and be suspended. But at the same time, I was accepting of the level of contrition and the apologetic nature in which he expressed his sentiments of regret. And I personally, as a black man, forgive him. And I thought that it was time to move on, because to me, Riley Cooper is a separate issue from the bigger picture that you just alluded to. I can sit here and say, I can forgive him. I can sit here and say, I will accept his apology and his level of contrition, despite the fact that I was along with the level of ease in which he said what he said, along with the level of venom and hostility that he was willing to express so conspicuously. But Riley Cooper aside, we get to a bigger issue, which is the issue I believe, as a community, black folks should care about most. Not Riley Cooper, but the bigger issue. The bigger issue is the Eagles giving him a fine for an undisclosed amount while still allowing him to practice that day. And then after they saw that a nation was up in arms and appalled by this particular act on his part, what do? You give him a 4-day sabbatical. First of all, you didn't announce that it was going to be 4 days. You said that he has an excused absence from the team, which means he's excused, but he was still going to get paid, and he was going to sensitivity training. And then in the aftermath of him going to sensitivity training, well, that was on a Friday, and the man is back on a Tuesday. How sensitive could it have been? I mean, I mean, it's just insulting. It's clear that it was nothing but a bunch of lip service, and I'm incredibly alarmed and disappointed that a first-class owner and leader and individual like Jeffrey Lurie would go for that nonsense and give off the statement that he gave. Incredibly disappointed in him. As far as I'm concerned, this is the most disappointing moment I've ever encountered in all my years of knowing Jeffrey Lurie. The same way I feel about Roger Goodell, an individual I've never met nor have I ever talked to. Certainly, I've talked to Jeffrey Lurie on many occasions. I have a lot of admiration for that man outside of this. But I've never met really or talked with Roger Goodell. Incredibly disappointed in him. I can't articulate how I feel about him any better than Mike Wilbon for PTI and NBA Countdown and all of that stuff are elocuted when he talked about he comes across as weak and somewhat gutless. There is no doubt about that. That can't be excused. Roger Goodell's no-show on this issue, and that's what I'm labeling it, a no-show, is one of the most disappointing performances of his stewardship over the NFL. I can't believe that he has been conspicuously silent the way that he has. It's embarrassing, it's shameful, it's disappointing. And so we look at it, and you're talking about a power structure, Skip. You're talking about the NFL, and you're talking about a team under its stewardship in the Philadelphia Eagles. If they give you the proverbial pass and they don't bring down the hammer, what is left for the players to do? At some point, they made their initial feelings known by somewhat distancing themselves from Riley Cooper and leaving him to hang on his own. But ultimately, you're trying to win football games because that's your primary responsibility, and you can't languish in something of this nature. So you have no choice but to acquiesce to the circumstances and the situation before you and move forward. Because in the end, Skip, as a people, you have to understand, although I applaud your sensitivity and how you feel about it, and I co-sign with you, at the same time, I can't afford to have the attitude that you have as it pertains to Riley Cooper, because what you find appalling and what you have witnessed to black folks, we experience this every day. Yeah. We walk by people with the whispers and the mimicking and the jokes. We see how they act towards us in corporate America and beyond. We get this feeling to the point where it's tangible that we are not considered an equal, that we've got to do twice as much to get half as much. We think about all of these things. So in the grand scheme of things, as appalling as we may find it, The reality is it's not a bit distant from what we feel when we're walking out in the streets every day dealing with what we deal with. Somebody else dresses sharp. You're a white dude, you dress sharp, you look good, and all of this other stuff. They'll compliment you. Me, they nickname me Shaft. What are you trying to say? We don't know. I mean, it's jokes coming all the time where people say things, they allude to things, and it's not always direct. It's not always conspicuous. Sometimes it's incredibly subtle, but it's a challenge that we face every day. So if we languish in those moments, focusing on what people think of us, what people have to say about us, what people have to feel about us, then we can't move forward. And as a people, we already have challenges white folks do not have. So this is just adding to those challenges if we embrace it the way that you are. We have to hope that there are Skip Baylesses of the world out there feeling exactly the way that you feel, with the voice that you have and how it resonates, that you will take those positions as a white individual, because as a black person, we simply can't afford it because we have too many challenges as it is.
Well said. Question for you. We've now heard on camera from two veteran Eagles, a second-year Eagle and leader in D'Amico Ryans defending the outcast that was Riley Cooper, and a longtime Eagle in Jason Avant, who's now clearly a backup receiver, but is a very strong Christian and is all about forgiveness. Stephen A. Smith, you know a number of the veteran Eagle leaders. Do you believe all of them are now comfortable with Riley Cooper?
No, not at all. But they're football players, and their mentality is that, you know what, chances are we're not going to have Thanksgiving dinner with him or exchange Christmas gifts. We come to work every day. We've got a job to do, and we don't need to be doing anything that's going to impede our ability to succeed on this football team this football season. He's got to deal with his own demons. It's not like we got to hang with him. It's not like we got to hug him and sing Kumbaya and call him our bosom buddy. We simply have to go to work with him every day, and we're not going to let him rain on our parade. That's really the situation. Kerry can speak to this just the way that I am. No situation is always ideal for us in the workplace. We accept it. It's a challenge that we know exists. And those who end up being successful, who come from our community, are those who know how to keep it moving no matter what adverse circumstances they face. Because if you are black, you had best believe you are going to face adverse circumstances every week, if not every day of your professional career. And you've got to have the intestinal fortitude to move forward and deal with it. So your eyebrows are raised. Your antennas are raised. You're aware, all right, this dude showed his hand. I know who he is now. But at the same time, we're going to play football. We're going to do our job. But when it's time to get off of work, you're going to go your way, and I'm going to go mine.
Stephen A., you mentioned something yesterday, and you got a big response from that. You talked about no investment. That's how some people feel in the workplace. And that was pretty much what the theme was when they allowed Riley Cooper back. Expound on that, because that's really truly a sentiment that people have.
Well, yeah, exactly, Kerry. What I was alluding to yesterday, what Kerry just brought up, Skip, and you remember this, is I said the decision to just come back after 4 days reduced the whole Riley Cooper situation to nothing short of lip service on the part of both the Eagles and the NFL. So if you are a black individual and you look at the jail time that Michael Vick served for the dogfighting scandal, if you look at Plexico Burress serving his 18 months for shooting himself in the leg, but you look at a kid like Trayvon Martin, who was 17 years of age, holding nothing but a bag of Skittles and a fruit drink, and his killer, George Zimmerman, gets off, okay? And then that kind of stuff happens. And then you piggyback off of that and see this Riley Cooper situation unfold, and the manner in which the NFL and the Eagles have elected to handle it in a very passive, slap on the hand kind of manner. It leaves folks in the black community asking one simple yet salient question. Do we ever matter enough? Because to us, we never matter enough. We expect to be treated unfairly. We expect it to be a double standard. We expect to constantly and perpetually have an uphill battle to climb. There are just those of us who accept that reality a hell of a lot easier than others, because somebody like me, Skip, I'm just ready for war every day. I wake up, I get myself ready, and I'm ready to roll. I'm ready to fight for what I want to maintain and elevate my quality of life. I won't bend, I won't break. I'm going to continue to fight to my dying breath. But everybody doesn't have that fight in them. But we all know from our community that it is a fight that is going to exist on a daily basis. And all we can hope for is that there are God-fearing individuals from the white community like yourself and a bevy of white people that I've worked with. I've worked with some great guys. I'm not one of those who believes that just because you're white, you're evil. That's nonsense. It's individual characters. There's a lot of white folks out there that are incredibly fair-minded and God-fearing, and that's who we hope to hear from, and we hope that their message resonates louder than those who are prejudiced and biased.
Okay, I want to say I'm thankful that at least we can have this discussion. And if you will allow, I'm going to bring it full circle back to just the football context because we are a sports show. I do finally disagree with your premise that the Eagles will be okay. They can coexist going forward. This has been my point from the start. In the football context, unity in football above all other sports is crucial in the locker room to a championship season. I think the unity is undermined by this. It is quietly below the surface fractured, and I don't think that can be healed quickly. Not in time for opening Sunday. I'm sorry, I don't trust this going forward.
Well, you don't trust it, but let's crystallize why. It's not because of what Riley Cooper did. It's because of how the Eagles and the NFL handled it. See, if people in America across the board, we're about justice. No matter what you've done, if you've received justice, we can get over it. If Michael Vick had never served 18 months in prison, we still would not have gotten over that. The reason why Michael Vick has been able to resurrect himself to such a degree is in part because we've looked at him and said, he paid his penance. He did his time. When you do that, and when a system ensures that you do that, then that alleviates a lot of the problems that exist. But when it passes on that responsibility, that's when stuff lingers. And that's what you're talking about here, which would be the fault of the Eagles and the NFL, not Riley Cooper.
Well, as of now, Riley Cooper is expected to play Friday when the Eagles face the Patriots.